This is the body cam video from ICE agent Jonathan Ross that shows the moment before he killed an American woman. For 2 centuries, the United States Constitution guaranteed that American citizens would be protected from unreasonable searches and seizures by federal agents. The Fourth Amendment was written by people who fled tyranny. They knew what it looked like when armed government forces terrorized communities. They knew what happened when federal power became unchecked. So they wrote protections into our founding document. No soldier could enter your home without a warrant. No agent could arrest you without probable cause. No federal force could occupy an American city without due process. But this morning, Monday, February 8th, 2026, those protections mean nothing in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Breaking news from the Twin Cities has confirmed what thousands of Minneapolis residents have been screaming about for weeks. Federal immigration agents have killed 2 American citizens during a massive operation that deployed over 3,000 armed federal officers to Minnesota. Renée Nicole Good, a 37-year-old mother of 3, was shot 3 times by an ICE agent on January 7th while sitting in her car. She died. Alex Jeffrey Pretti, a 37-year-old intensive care nurse who worked at the VA hospital caring for veterans, was shot multiple times by Border Patrol agents on January 24th while filming federal officers with his cell phone. He died. Both were United States citizens. Both had no criminal records. Both were killed by agents who claimed they were acting in self-defense. And the Trump administration is defending the killings. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said the agents followed their training. Border Czar Tom Homan said Minnesota asked for this by being a sanctuary state. President Trump initially defended the agents, then days later said the deaths should not have happened. But the operation continues. 3,000 federal agents remain on the streets of Minneapolis. They are conducting warrantless arrests. They are raiding homes without judicial orders. They are detaining American citizens. And a federal judge just ruled that ICE violated at least 96 court orders in Minnesota in 1 month. In this emergency investigation, we are going to expose exactly what Operation Metro Surge is and why it represents the most aggressive domestic federal law enforcement action since the civil rights era. We are going to show you the timeline of how Renee Good and Alex Pretti were killed, using video evidence and eyewitness testimony. We are going to reveal why Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey told ICE to get the fuck out of his city and why Minnesota Governor Tim Walz activated the National Guard. We are going to explain how this operation violates the Constitution and why it could be coming to your city next. And we are going to answer the question that nobody in Washington once asked. Has the United States government declared war on its own citizens? 2 Americans are dead. Thousands have been arrested without warrants. A major American city is under occupation, and most of the country has no idea it is happening. The Minneapolis ICE massacre is not just a local story. It is a preview of what authoritarian government looks like when it comes to America. To understand how we got here, we have to understand Operation Metro Surge. In December 2025, the Department of Homeland Security announced what it called the largest immigration enforcement operation in United States history. The target was the Minneapolis-St. Paul metropolitan area. The stated purpose was to investigate social services fraud in the Somali American community and to arrest criminal illegal aliens. The deployment included 2,000 immigration and customs enforcement officers and 1,000 customs and border protection officers. That is 3,000 armed federal agents sent to 1 American city. This was not a normal immigration operation. This was a military-style surge. Federal agents arrived in unmarked vehicles. They wore tactical gear, body armor, and masks. They operated in teams with automatic weapons. They conducted raids on homes, businesses, schools, and churches. And critically, they did not obtain warrants from local judges before making arrests. They relied on administrative warrants issued by ICE itself, which do not have the same constitutional protections as judicial warrants. The operation began in early January 2026. Almost immediately, Minneapolis residents reported aggressive tactics. Federal agents were stopping people on the street and demanding identification. They were raiding apartment buildings and detaining entire families. They were showing up at schools and workplaces. Community members started organizing watch networks. Parents stood outside schools to protect children from ICE. Neighbors blew whistles to warn each other when federal agents were in the area. This is how people in occupied territories behave. This is not how Americans should have to live. But the federal government escalated. On January 6, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announced an expansion of the operation. St. Paul City Council member Molly Coleman said the first day of the expanded action was unlike any other day we've experienced. An eyewitness later said, people in our terrorized by ICE for 6 weeks. And then, on January 26, the turned deadly. Renée Nicole Good was a 30-year-old woman who lived in with her wife Becca and her. She was a poet. She was by her mother as people I've ever known. On the morning of January 7th, Renee dropped her son off at school. It was a Tuesday. The neighborhood was on edge because ICE had been circling the school all morning. Parents and community members had organized to stand watch and make sure children could get to school safely without their families being detained. After dropping off her son, Renee was driving on Portland Avenue in South Minneapolis. Federal agents were conducting an operation in the area. Renee stopped her maroon Honda Pilot sideways in the street. Video shows that she was partially blocking traffic. Whistles were blowing. This was the community alert system. People were warning each other that ICE was present. Renee motioned for unmarked government vehicles to drive past. Some did, others idled. Then ICE agent Jonathan Ross approached Renee's vehicle. Ross was a 10-year ICE veteran and an Iraq War veteran. He had been dragged by a car 6 months earlier during another immigration operation. He was wearing tactical gear and a mask. He had a body camera running. That video has now been released. The video shows Ross walking around the front of Renee's vehicle. He does not say anything. Renee says to him, "That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you." Ross does not respond. Renee's wife, Becca, was standing nearby filming with her phone. She said to Ross, "Show your face." Ross kept filming. Other agents approached the vehicle. One agent reached through the open driver's side window and ordered Renee to get out of the car. Renee briefly put the car in reverse, moving back a few feet. Then she shifted into drive and began moving forward and to the right into the direction of traffic. Her vehicle was turning away from where Ross was standing at the front left of the car. Jonathan Ross fired 3 shots. All 3 hit Renee. The vehicle continued forward and crashed into a parked car. Renee was unresponsive. She had gunshot wounds to her chest, her left forearm, and possibly her head. First responders arrived within minutes. They moved her to the sidewalk to separate her from the escalating confrontation between federal agents and community members. They performed CPR. At around 10:30 in the morning, about an hour after she was shot, efforts to resuscitate Renee Good stopped. She was dead. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem held a press conference that same day. She claimed Renee had tried to run over an ICE agent. She said Renee was weaponizing her vehicle to kill or harm federal officers. She said the agent who shot her was struck by the vehicle and was treated at a hospital before being released. She declined to answer whether the agent fired before or after being struck. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey watched the video. He said, "Having seen the video myself, I want to tell everybody directly that is bullshit. To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis." He was not alone. Governor Tim Walz proclaimed January 9th, 2026 to be Renee Good Day in Minnesota. Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara criticized ICE and called Renee's killing predictable and preventable. The video evidence does not support the government's narrative. Frame-by-frame analysis by ABC News shows that Renee was turning her steering wheel to the right, away from Ross, just over 1 second before the first shot was fired. The time between the first shot and the second shot was 399 milliseconds. The time between the second and third shots was 299 milliseconds. Ross fired 3 shots in less than 1 second as Renee's vehicle was turning away from him. Renee Good was the 9th person in 5 states that ICE agents had opened fire on since September 2025. She was the 5th person killed during federal deportation operations. She was a United States citizen. She had no criminal record. She was protecting her community, and a federal agent killed her. Thousands of people protested in Minneapolis. Vigils were held across the Twin Cities. Musicians condemned ICE. Bruce Springsteen dedicated The Promised Land to Renee at a concert. He said, "If you believe in the power of law and that no one stands above it, if you stand against heavily armed masked federal troops invading an American city, using Gestapo tactics against our fellow citizens, if you believe you don't deserve to be murdered for exercising your American right to protest, then send a message to this president. ICE should get the fuck out of Minneapolis." On January 28th, Springsteen released a new song called Streets of Minneapolis about Renee's death and the federal operation. But the operation did not stop. And 17 days after Renee Good was killed, federal agents killed another American citizen. Alex Jeffrey Pretti was a 37-year-old ICU nurse. He worked at the Minneapolis VA hospital caring for veterans. He was described by colleagues as incredibly competent, sweet, and kind. He loved the outdoors and mountain biking. He had no criminal record. His only interactions with police were traffic tickets. He had a Minnesota permit to legally carry a firearm. After Renee Good was killed, Alex participated in protests against ICE. His parents warned him to be careful. He told them he understood the risks. On the morning of January 24, 2026, Alex was in the Whittier neighborhood of Minneapolis near the intersection of 26th Street and Nicollet Avenue. Federal agents were conducting an immigration operation. Community members, including Alex, arrived to observe and document the federal activity. Video evidence reviewed and verified by ABC News shows a timeline. At 8:54 a.m., activists arrived and saw federal officers. At 8:55, they called for more observers. At 8:56, at least 8 federal officers gathered outside Glam Doll Donuts. They were preparing canisters of pepper spray. At 8:58, 3 minutes before Alex was shot, he was holding up his cell phone filming a federal officer. Alex continued filming as officers detained people. At 9 o'clock a.m., he was still filming when officers appeared to push a person wearing an orange backpack. Alex stepped forward, his phone in his right hand, his left hand raised. An officer pepper sprayed him directly in the face. Alex appeared to fall into the person with the backpack, possibly grabbing them to stabilize himself. An officer pulled Alex by the hood of his coat into the street. 3 officers held Alex down on the ground. Video shows one officer visibly hitting Alex. During the struggle, one officer can be seen leaving the group with what appears to be a gun. This is critical. The gun was taken from Alex during the struggle. He was not holding it when officers first engaged him. At 9:01 a.m., gunshots rang out. Multiple shots. Alex Jeffrey Pretti was shot several times. He died at the scene. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem held another press conference. She said Alex approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun and attacked officers. She said Alex arrived at the scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement. Stephen Miller, a senior White House aide, called Alex a domestic terrorist. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth posted on social media a how-to-avoid ICE guide that blamed Alex for his own death. Alex's parents released a statement. They said they were heartbroken but also very angry. They said, "The sickening lies told about our son by the administration are reprehensible and disgusting." They said Alex is clearly not holding a gun when attacked by Trump's murdering and cowardly ICE thugs. He has his phone in his right hand, and his empty left hand is raised above his head while trying to protect the woman ICE just pushed down, all while being pepper sprayed. Video evidence contradicts the government's claims. ABC News frame-by-frame analysis shows Alex was filming with his phone when officers engaged him. He raised his hands. He was pepper sprayed. He was pulled to the ground. Officers took his gun during the struggle. Then he was shot. Minnesota Police Chief Brian O'Hara confirmed Alex was a lawful gun owner with a permit. He had no criminal record. He was a VA nurse who spent his career caring for veterans, and federal agents killed him. Minneapolis, thousands attended across the Twin Cities, New York, Los Angeles, and Washington. A GoFundMe for Alex's family, $1 million in one day. Between the Minnesota Timberwolves and Gold postponed due to safety concerns. When the game was played the next day, there was silence for Alex, just as Renee 2 weeks before. Mayor held another press conference. More residents, how many more need to die or get badly hurt for this? He announced he would seek an order to stop the federal operation. He requested National Guard support because police were outnumbered. Tim Walz activated the Minnesota. He called the killing sickening. Trump must end this operation. Even some Republicans broke ranks. Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana said, "The events in Minneapolis are incredibly disturbing. The credibility of ICE and DHS are at stake. There must be a full joint federal and state investigation." But the Trump administration doubled down. President Trump praised ICE. He blamed Minnesota for being a sanctuary state. He said Renee and Alex were not angels, though he later said their deaths should not have happened. Border czar Tom Homan defended the operation. He said Minnesota brought this on itself. And then a federal judge dropped a bombshell. On January 28th, Minnesota Chief U.S. District Judge Patrick Schiltz issued a ruling. He found that ICE violated at least 96 court orders in Minnesota since January 1st, 2026. 96. That means ICE was ordered by federal judges not to do certain things, and they did them anyway, 96 times in 1 month. Judge Schiltz's ruling documented a pattern of lawlessness by federal agents. The court documented warrantless arrests, administrative warrants issued by ICE without judicial review, detentions of United States citizens, arrests of people with no connection to the fraud investigation, and critically, arrests that violated individuals' constitutional rights. Here is what that means. ICE claimed they were in Minnesota to investigate social services fraud in the Somali community. But of the 3,000 people ICE arrested in Minneapolis, only 23 were from Somalia, and none had ties to the social services frauds under investigation. ICE lied about the purpose of the operation. ICE also claimed they were arresting dangerous criminals. But data reviewed by journalists showed that many people ICE said they arrested were not actually arrested during the operation. They were transferred from state custody before the operation even started. Some had been transferred in 2003. ICE inflated the numbers and lied about who they were arresting. And ICE violated the Fourth Amendment. The Constitution requires warrants signed by judges based on probable cause. ICE used administrative warrants that they issued themselves. These do not have the same legal weight. Federal courts have repeatedly ruled that administrative ICE warrants alone do not justify entering homes or detaining citizens, but ICE did it anyway. 96 times in 1 month they violated court orders. This is not law enforcement, this is lawlessness. Let's talk about the human cost. Renee Good and Alex Pretti are dead. 4 other people have been killed during Operation Metro Surge. 1 detainee died in ICE custody. Schools in Minneapolis transitioned to remote learning because parents were afraid to send their children. Businesses shut down because employees were too scared to come to work. The economy of Minnesota has been disrupted. Families have been separated. American citizens have been detained. And the operation created the opposite of public safety. Minneapolis Police Chief O'Hara said the ICE operation made Minneapolis less safe. Why? Because local police had to divert resources to manage the chaos ICE created. Protesters clashing with federal agents. Community members terrified and refusing to cooperate with any law enforcement. Trust between police and the community completely shattered. Governor Walz said the operation's primary purpose is retribution, not immigration enforcement. He is right. Trump is punishing Minnesota for being a blue state and a sanctuary jurisdiction. This is not about public safety. This is about political revenge. And it is spreading. After the deaths of Renee Good and Alex Pretti, the Trump administration announced it was withdrawing 700 agents from Minnesota, but that still leaves over 2,000 federal agents in the state. And the administration is deploying similar operations to other cities: Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, Seattle, Portland. The playbook is the same. Send thousands of armed federal agents, conduct warrantless arrests, ignore local authorities, escalate confrontations, and if Americans die, blame them. This is the imperial boomerang. That is the theory that tactics developed by empires abroad eventually come home to be used on domestic populations. The United States has conducted military operations in Iraq, Afghanistan, and other countries for decades. Those operations involve door-to-door raids, mass detentions, and aggressive tactics against civilian populations. American soldiers and federal agents learned those tactics overseas. Now they are using them on American streets. Jonathan Ross, the ICE agent who killed Renee Good, is an Iraq War veteran. The tactics he used in Baghdad, he used in Minneapolis. Let's talk about the legal and constitutional issues. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. Federal agents cannot enter your home without a warrant signed by a judge. They cannot arrest you without probable cause. But ICE is claiming they have the authority to ignore these protections in immigration enforcement. They claim administrative warrants are enough. They claim immigration enforcement is a special category that does not require the same constitutional protections. Federal courts are rejecting this. A federal judge in Oregon just ruled that ICE must stop arrests without warrants unless there is a likelihood the person will escape. The judge said ICE cannot rely on administrative warrants alone. This is a huge legal setback for the Trump administration. If this ruling is upheld, it could shut down warrantless ICE operations nationwide. But the Trump administration is not stopping. They are appealing. They are ignoring court orders. They are daring judges to hold them in contempt. And what is the enforcement mechanism if federal agents refuse to follow court orders? Who is going to arrest the ICE agents? Who is going to hold DHS accountable? This is a constitutional crisis. The executive branch is defying the judicial branch, and nobody knows how to stop them. Let's talk about what this means for you. If you live in a city targeted by ICE, you are at risk. It does not matter if you are a citizen. Renee Good was a citizen. Alex Pretti was a citizen. They were killed anyway. If federal agents decide you are obstructing their operation, they can detain you. If you are filming them, they can arrest you. Journalists Don Lemon and Georgia Fort were arrested in Minnesota for covering ICE operations. They were released, but the message was sent: cover us and you will be arrested. If you are in your car and federal agents order you to stop, what do? Renee Good stopped. She was killed. If you comply, they might arrest you. If you try to leave, they might shoot you. There is no safe response when armed federal agents surround you without a warrant. And the propaganda is relentless. Every time ICE kills someone, DHS holds a press conference and lies. They said Renee tried to run over an agent. The video shows her turning away from him. They said Alex attacked officers with a gun. The video shows him filming with his phone and raising his hands. They said both were threats. Both were American citizens with no criminal records. The administration labels victims as terrorists to justify killing them. This is how authoritarianism works. The government uses violence, then the government lies about the violence, then the government blames the victims, and half the country believes the lie because they trust the uniforms and the badges more than they trust the evidence. Here is the final brutal truth. Operation Metro Surge is a test. The Trump administration is testing how much federal force Americans will tolerate. They are testing whether they can send 3,000 armed agents into a major city and kill citizens without facing consequences. They are testing whether courts can stop them. They are testing whether the media will hold them accountable. They are testing whether the American people will accept militarized law enforcement on domestic soil. And so far, yes, Minneapolis is resisting. Governor Walz activated. Yes, federal judges against ICE continues. The agents' arrests are still happening and planning to expand to other cities. You think this cannot happen in your city? If you think this is justification, you are. This is about whether the Constitution limits federal power. Americans have rights that age. We live in a free country or an country. Renée Good was protecting children going to school. Alex Pretti was filming federal agents. Both were exercising their constitutional rights. Both were killed by the federal government, and the government is defending the killings. Subscribe if you want to know the truth about what is happening in America right now. Share this with everyone who thinks federal law enforcement is always acting in good faith. Because Renee and Alex are proof that the government will kill you and then lie about it. The Minneapolis ICE massacre is not the end. It is the beginning. And your city could be next. The Constitution is not protecting us anymore. The courts are not stopping them. The only thing that can stop this is mass resistance. Millions of Americans saying no warrantless arrests, no militarized federal operations in American cities, no killing citizens and calling them terrorists, no occupation of Minneapolis or any other American community. 2 Americans are dead, 96 court orders violated, 3,000 federal agents occupying an American city. This is not immigration enforcement. This is state violence. This is authoritarianism. This is America in 2026. And unless we stop it, this is America's future.